And actually, while I'm introducing Steve, there's someone else who works closely with Steve who's here this afternoon is Dr. Jason Archer, who's over here from Abacus Bio, and Jason is heavily involved in the beef and lamb genetics program, leads the progeny test, and not a week goes by that these two aren't collaborating together on something behind the scenes with us. So yeah, thanks to Jason as well. Anyway, I'll push on, and Steve's going to talk to us about what's driving maternal performance. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. I guess I think this might be the third Beef Expo I've been at now. So I've been in the country 2.5 years, and I find I've got to talk for about 20 words before people start listening to me, because it takes about 20 words before they pin the accent. So if you're a couple hours north of Niagara Falls, that's where the accent comes from, but I live about 30 minutes below Dunedin at the moment, in Invermay, been there. So the title was given to me, Like to Talk Beef Cows. So if we're going to talk, could be a bit interactive, so I thought I'd give you guys a little bit of something to do as well. If from a science perspective, I don't think I really have to tell everyone in the room here what makes a productive beef cow, because we've already heard the answer a couple times today. And so what I'd like to do is get you thinking about, if you were to write up a job advertisement for a beef cow, what would it read like? And and I just pulled this off Trade Me this week, and for our friends from the US or Australia, this is basically where everyone goes to buy or sell something in New Zealand. And so here's a job advertisement, and it gets down to the nitty-gritty here. We are looking for a motivated, honest person that can work in a team and alone. Must have 3 to 4 broken-in dogs, a combination provided. So there's a must-have. If you're going to hire somebody, there's something that they absolutely must have. In this case, he has to come with working. So I want you to think about what's the must-have for a beef cow. We'll come back to it. So I did a little bit like all kind of academics. You go to the scientific literature and you do a little bit of background on this. And there's been a lot of work done. This was a review that was presented in 2002, and Tom Jenkins and Cal Farrell at the USDA Mark have done a lot of work around beef cow efficiency. But if you look at the reference list, the thing that's common amongst all these publications that they referenced around beef cow efficiency is a lot of it is basically the end of last century. A lot of work done in the 80s and 90s about what makes productive beef cows, different breeds, different sizes, milk yield high and low. And if you look second to the bottom there, you'll see some New Zealand work as well, Chris Morris and colleagues out of Ag Research. So there's been a lot of work done around beef cow efficiency. So what is it? What makes the best cow? Big cows, small cows, more milk, less milk? And I'm going to come back to something here. As I was digging through these things, and I actually put this in here, it might, I know it'll ring a bit with Wayne and Wayne's presentation for Tuesday around feed intake, and basically what Tom Jenkins kind of summarized there is cows that have an ability to have a higher appetite potential when there's lots of feed available actually have got better reproduction when time is limited, and I think is quite interesting. I think it ties in with what others had mentioned here today. So we want cows that can actually, when the feed's there, put on some condition. So I've got bolded there kind of my key message, in that if you look at these different studies, do cows with more milk or less milk, or big cows or small cows, we can push up cow size, we can push up performance, we can push up milk yield, but the minute reproduction starts to fall away, it's all over. Basically, it all, as I've learned in New Zealand, the term is it all goes to custard, right? So you say, well, how far can we push these cows? As soon as you get to the point where reproduction starts to fall off, it's all over in terms of the economics. And that's, if I was to summarize all those genetic studies, that's basically the take-home message. So reproduction is really important. Cow size. So Carrie touched on this a little bit. Do bigger cows eat more? Yes, bigger cows eat more. And this, I had to convert this because I had it in pounds, but I've converted it here to kilograms. I hope I've done it right. But we've got different cow sizes there, 450 kilogram cows up to 640 kilogram cows. And that's their energy requirement during lactation along the left-hand side. And there's cows there with different genetic potential for milk yield. Basically, 29% more feed for the bigger cow. And the question is that bigger cow actually bringing in enough calf to justify that extra feed? So again, what I think what Carrie was saying, moderating cow size, selecting for growth rate, but at the same time putting downward pressure on mature cow size. Why? Bigger cows eat more. We could run more cows if they weren't as big. So we're interested in cow size. This is a slide borrowed from Bob Weber at Kansas State, and we're on a program once together about cow efficiency, and Bob has this slide, and I think we could show some similar slides in New Zealand. But here we got cow weight across the bottom, and the cow's calf weight up the left-hand side. And we got multiple screens, so I don't really think I have to point too much at that one. I don't think the pointer's working anyways. But what you can see here is we got multiple cows all around 1,300 pounds, but a huge range in calf weights. So the cows are the same size, but they're producing vast differences in calf size. Or look the other way, we could say, well, we could actually get the same size calf out of a much smaller cow. And this is just these the calves are adjusted for. They're all adjusted to the same age and adjusted for age of dam and all that stuff. But there's a huge range in calf size for a given size of cow, and I think that's really what we're going to try and target with the genetics is how can we get the calves out of a smaller cow. So I'll come back to the job ad. What's the must-have? So kind of a loaded question. Neil, if I was to give you a must-have for a beef cow, what would it be? Fertility. Thanks, Neil. I know the audience a little bit to get the answer I wanted. So I wrote this one up. It's a 10,000 stock unit property running sheep and cattle. We're looking for mother cows to join our herd. We're looking for cows that will cover the ruggedest country and clean up the roughest feed. Applicants must work well within the herd or when calving alone and must calve every year. Cows whose calves meet customer specifications are preferred. And I think that ties in with what Carey said. He had 10 to 10 on fertility and 3 on carcass. If you don't have the calf, the carcass doesn't really matter. But if we can add the carcass to the cows, that's even better. And I'm not going to touch on carcass again, not because I don't think it's important, but we're going to talk about cows today and maternal performance. No accommodation will be provided. So where are we with the maternal productivity project? Beef and lamb project. We're on 4 different properties here, from Methven down to Mount Linton, and the goal here is 10,000 cows. So there's these properties that we're on, but what Graham showed earlier for the progeny test properties, there's 2,100 cows being mated there as well that Jason's coordinating, and basically there's body condition scores and cow weights and DNA taken on those cows as well. So when you put the whole project together, we're going to hit 10,000 cows is the goal. And that's across stud and commercial, Angus and Hereford, and on the mother cow side, and DNA from all these females. So the team, and I have with me here Anna Boyd. She's let her hair down for these couple days, but when she puts her hair up and she's in the yards, she really goes through the cows. And here she is, body condition scoring, a Hereford here, and you see she's got her hands on the cow. So she's actually had her hands on thousands of cows now, doing body condition scores and measurements. So I get to stand up here today and make the presentation, but I really got to take my hat off to Anna that basically does the field work. And she's out here doing all these measurements. So where are we? We're at Halden Station, 350 Hereford and 150 Angus cows there. Carey's Place, again, it's about 3,000 cows across 800 studs, and the balance at commercial. And Carey will tell you, Anna's always on them, that no cow goes missed. Basically, she makes sure that they all get done. The peacocks, and Robert, I heard your voice behind me earlier, so I knew you were here, but Rory Gorge, 200 Hereford stud cattle. And at Longspur, the Innes's up at Methven, 200, a straight commercial operation with 200 Hereford females. So we're basically at these properties, the goal is pre-calving, calf marking, and again at weaning. So how long does it take? And I want to do this little demonstration. I told Ann I was going to do this story about, it could impress me because I went down on this particular day to Mount Linton when they ran the stud cows through. and just how fast we got through this group of cows. And Anna was quick to say, well, that's not as fast as we can go. We could, that's not, we could go faster. And we had to retag some of those cows. And I said, well, it's still, I thought it was still pretty impressive. So this is the first cow in the group, went through at 2:53 p.m. So that's after we'd done all the calves and everything in the morning. The last cow went through at 5:42 p.m. I remember it was raining. I was undercover, luckily. And so that's 538 cows, mature age cows, in 2 hours and 49 minutes. That's 19 seconds per cow. So that's Anna, on her hand on every one of those cows, calling out the scores, cow weights. Now, we didn't have to DNA sample. All that stuff had been done. The EID tags are already in the cows, so that's just running them through at speed. And I think it's a bit of a testament to the team pushing them up the race as well, obviously, to get that many through in that length of time. So this is, again, how can you do that? EIDs, commercial data at speed. Why are we interested in body condition scoring? And I point out Anna, because if you're interested in body condition scoring and you want to talk about body condition scores, please catch up with her. She's here through till Tuesday. Cows in lower body condition score are less likely to rebreed, and this is a slide Jason provided. This is from the progeny test herds, the 4 commercial sites. Body condition scores on those cows across 2 years now, basically showing once you start dropping below about a body condition score of 6, this is when fertility really starts to drop off. So we want to, obviously, we don't want cows at that body condition score. We want to push them up a bit. These are, again, commercial cows in commercial conditions. There has been a bunch of work done on the stud side around body condition score. And if you look up, once you get up to a higher level of body condition, you'll see doesn't have a big impact on fertility. So I think sometimes if we're looking at stud data, we might do some genetic analysis and say, well, body condition score really didn't add much information around fertility. But I think with our commercial data, we might find something different because we're working at the other end of the curve. Cows are pushed harder, and in Canada we use the term they're in their working clothes. I don't know if you use the same thing. So what are some of the ranges? So this is Mount Linton Angus cows, mature age cows, body condition scores at 2 different time points here last year, mating and weaning. And I think what you see there is, most cows are 6+. But there's still some cows, 5, 5.5, and again, a pretty wide distribution in scores. So from 4 right up to 8, basically. So there is a range, a commercial range in body condition score and cow weight that we're getting with the data. I use this set of results from Halden to kind of show how cows can change, and this is the same story. So we're seeing the same thing at Halden, which Kerry just told you happens at his place. If we look, for example, here, pre-calving in 2014 are the orange bars, and you'll see, well, let's go back one, first year we did this weaning of 2014 are the blue bars, and you'll see, the 2 biggest bars are kind of at a 6 and a 6.5 score. They go through a tough winter, they come up pre-calving, they're now down 5, 5.5. Okay, so they've dropped at least they've dropped a full condition score. Then they come up here, calf marking time, mating time, and they've piled up that condition back on again, and we're up again 6+, the gray bars. So they basically come from weaning, lost a bunch of weight over winter, and put it right back on again, come up to mating, and then they drop back a bit more come weaning. And the other thing that you'll see here is we've got more variation in our body condition scores at weaning than we do at mating. So basically at mating, it tends to be all the cows are getting up in better condition, and we've got more spread starts to come around again come weaning time. So one of the things, so we've been collecting DNA in all the cows, and that'll let us through genomics to basically build a relationship matrix even with commercial cows. The benefit we have with the Halden Herefords is that at Halden they're actually they're doing calving beats, so they're matching up all the cows. We've got a pedigree in all the animals, and Neil Cullen, who's pictured here at Ruakura at Ag Research, has been doing genetic analysis with Halden data for a lot of years, and so he's got a historic pedigree file. So we could basically treat this as a genetic analysis with a pedigree, recorded pedigree, and look at what is the condition scores and weights that we're taking there on these cows. Is it heritable? What's the correlation? So Neil ran this analysis for me, and I'm grateful to him for that. And you'll see that we've been there 7 times now since weaning 2014. So we got 7 sets of measurements throughout the year. So this is results, heritabilities, repeatabilities for body condition score and cow weight. So what we're seeing here, body condition score. So that 0.2 number there. So you see BCS is body condition score, and we've got a 0.2 and a 0.34. The 0.2 is a heritability, and the 0.34 is the repeatability. And then beside it here is live weight. Heritability is 0.4, and repeatability is 0.75. So what's the repeatability? That's actually the kind of the phenotypic correlation from one measurement to the next. And the heritability is what proportion of the variation that we see is actually due to genetics. So body condition score heritability 0.2, you know, that's something similar to weaning weight, for example. So it's what we call moderately heritable. So I said, Annie, you should feel good because these body condition score measurements you're taking, although they're categorical, you know, you're scoring cows, 6, is she 6, she's 6.5. There's a real genetic component there. If the data was just random noise, the heritability would be 0. So I wouldn't expect anything better really than a 0.2 for body condition score heritability. I think that's really good. Live weight is higher, and I think for mature cow weight of around 0.4, that's in line with what we see with breed plan data. So the data I think is coming up. Again, this is some early results. The one thing we do find, though, again, go back to the story with weaning weight. At weaning time, we're seeing a bit more variation, and we think that's contributing to a higher heritability at weaning time. So body condition score there is 0.27 at weaning and 0.43 for live weight at weaning. And we've adjusted for the calf's weight. So if a cow's lost condition because she had a bigger calf, we put that in the model. So we tried to put that effect in the model. So it's kind of her body condition score independent of how big her calf was. Then I said to Neil, well, let's treat, we've got 3 different time points. We've got pre-calving measurements, we've got mating measurements, we've got weaning measurements. Let's consider them as different traits. So that lets us say, okay, what's the genetic correlation between the body condition score at pre-calving and one at mating and one at weaning? And basically what he finds here is the correlation is almost 1. It's pretty much 1 between those different measurements, which is good news. He's saying if we want to rank animals genetically, it doesn't really matter if we took the measurements at any of those 3 time points. The genetics are basically going to rank the same for body condition, although they're at different mean levels. Obviously, pre-calving they were the lowest, and then coming up again for mating and weaning. Same for weight, very similar. Got the red card. I got to burn through it here. Correlations of almost 1 between our different time points. So I guess I consider the story as kind of like you bought the cow, you bred her, now we have a calf on the ground. The story's not over yet. We still got to raise this calf and see what it's going to turn out to be. But we've got some conclusions I think we can make so far. So far, it looks as though body condition score is heritable, about 0.25 across all the measures, which I think is really good for the trait we're dealing with. It appears more heritable at weaning. We think it's due because we got more variation at weaning. And the genetic correlation amongst the different time points seems to be pretty high. If we get low density genotypes in all these commercial cows, we can actually redo this analysis using, for example, the 2,000+ commercial cows we get out of Kerry's herd every year on the Angus side. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. We've got time for a quick question.
And can you hear that better now? So
Yeah.
it's a real worry for us that there's a lot of emphasis going on mature cow weight, when the mature cow weight figures that the Angus breed anyway produce do not take any consideration for condition score. And we've been supplying that information for, I don't know, 20 years. It's all sitting there somewhere in ABRI, but they won't use it. So for us to get a low mature cow weight, it's a skinny cow.
Yep. So thanks. No, I could hear you at the, I think everyone could probably hear you at the very beginning as well, but so there's maybe maybe a couple things to bring up there. Just go back to, so if we have body condition, that's, I guess, yeah, so that's why we're interested in the body condition scores, partly for that reason. Just around, Wayne mentioned earlier about working together with the Australians on a trans-Tasman kind of maternal efficiency project. One of the goals in that project would be linking in with breed plan, what body condition score measurements are in the database, like what you say. And actually, I know the data is because I've been at AgBoo and we've talked potentially about the project, and he brought up his computer screen, and I said, well, I know there's one breeder over there who's been doing a lot of body condition scoring, and sure enough, the stuff is there. So you're right, there's data in the database, and basically do a full genetic analysis on the data that's there. I have spoken to some the folks at ABRI, and they said, well, they did have a look at body condition score years ago, and at that time they didn't see enough in it to do an EBV for it. So part of the, well, more data, new genetics. Let's have a new look at the data, but also I think from the commercial point of view, the story might be a bit different. I think that's what we're seeing here. Is we're actually seeing on a commercial basis, we're getting cows that are getting in that under 6 score range, in which case then it does have an impact on fertility. So I think if you go back to that cow, if we just select on mature cow weight, what you're saying, you could just be selecting for cows that don't maintain their condition, and that would be a bad thing. But if you actually at the same time had a body condition score EBV, then you can use the one in light of the other and not fall into that trap, I guess is the point. Wayne?
The carcass EBV for rib fat depth is quite highly genetically correlated with cow body condition. So if you want to improve body condition of cows, the tools are there already through using the carcass rib and rump fat EBVs. And at the moment, they would be more accurate to use those rib and rump fat EBVs on young animals than to use the body condition of cows, because it's hard for breed plan to get body condition in cows that's sufficiently accurate that the heritabilities are as good as what we saw here.
If you select for heavy milking small frame cows, they're not carried on with growth. If you select for heavy milking small framed cows, does this not impact on your 600-day growth?
Yeah. So there's a positive correlation between 600-day or your growth breeding values and mature cow weight, but it's not one. So just like we can try and breed to, and I want to put a slide together about this, and I just couldn't think of a good way to express it really, but we look at, for example, I think we've done a really good job of breaking the antagonism between birth weight and growth. So guys have been doing a really good job of cranking up the growth without creating a bunch of calving wrecks, so they've kept the birth weight down. The same mechanism really is put the downward pressure on mature cow weight and bend the growth curve the other way. So low at the beginning, low birth weight, rapid growth, mature off early. I think that's the ultimate goal. And because that correlation is not one, we can do that. But it takes people actually. Obviously, they got to select the right bulls, but the EBVs for the bulls have to be accurate, which requires data. So guys have to accurately weigh their cows, get that data into breed plan in order to get the breeding values in the bulls to be accurate so they can actually drive the mature cow weight down. So if you just select for small cows, you'll just drop growth.
It's not really a question, it's just about the, if you're selecting for mature cow weight and you're worried about the the skinny cows being the ones with the low mature cow size, well, I'd suggest that you shouldn't be selling bulls out of skinny cows anyway, and they're the ones that should be perhaps being culled from your herd anyway.
One thing you've got to mature cow weight in Australia is a very poorly recorded trait. I mean, it's a simple trait to record, but up until a few years ago, about only 10 or 15% of cows in the Australian database were recorded, and it's risen slightly. So it's a poorly recorded trait, and I acknowledge what was said down there because it's an important issue. If you're weighing cows and you don't have, the problem's been the condition scoring, and you'll get, if you confuse low mature cow weight, they could be the worst cows in the herd. So I could mention a couple of bulls where high accuracy bulls that have low mature cow weights, but they're very negative for fat. So the combination of the two will actually accentuate a problem, because you're going to get harder doing, probably, they could be high milking cattle, but they may not be, but Angus cattle are probably milk too much to a fault anyway. So you've got to look at the data and work out, and unfortunately with mature cow weights you don't find any of these things out till quite, you know, they're 7 year old, you know, the cows are 5, 6, 7 years old. And I suppose that's where genomics might be a big advantage.
Thanks very much, Steve, for a thorough and informative presentation. Really good to see some data coming out of these projects.